Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian and Infinity Battlescape has been in early access for a few weeks now, and shortly after release, the developers I-Novae discussed their plans for the future of the game and released an accompanying roadmap. The roadmap discusses general fixes and then goes on to look at the future of the game. Now it's broken down into three main segments, which include the short term, mid-term and long term. This covers a period from the coming weeks all the way through to updates during 2020. So this includes then fixes all the way through to new content such as new planets. The roadmap also contains the usual conditions, just pointing out that any content or any dates are subject to change. The short-term plans then cover from the current few weeks and include some fixes that have already been deployed, as well as a number of other changes and improvements. HUD improvements are right at the top of the roadmap, and personally I'm glad to see this, as the HUD can certainly do with some decluttering. Ship upgrades are also going to be a thing, and eventually, although the roadmap doesn't mention this, there might be some persistence to the upgrades. Upgrades will also include weapon and missile improvements, although the roadmap does mention that there won't be a whole lot to these upgrades initially, and this really does bring us on to I-Novae's development process and how they actually approach their releases. Their intent then is to continue to iterate upon the game in small regular releases, so that content will see slow steady improvements. The ship upgrades is a good example here, as over time the upgrades might become more in-depth and varied. It's a choice of development that so far has worked well for Battlescape. The short of it is that I-Novae want to avoid large singular updates released only occasionally throughout the year, and instead would rather release lots of smaller regular updates. Within the next few weeks we can expect to see changes to the battle reports, improvements to the star map and some more game balance passes. Allowing carriers to repair and resupply smaller ships is also on the cards, as is the subsystems targeting. And this should be particularly interesting, as the ability to target engines or weapons will have quite a change on the combat. The midterm section of the roadmap talks about what can be expected by the end of the year, and as a part of the iterative design process, ship upgrades will feature a second pass, adding more weapons and upgrade variety. Electronic warfare, meanwhile, will also make an appearance. Now it seems capital ships are going to get a control rework, although there's no details on what exactly this may entail, or just how extensive it may actually be. Now one of the big updates will be the arrivals of new planets, which will include the game's first ocean planet. Planets are one of the main features of Infinity Battlescape, and even though there's only a relatively small number of planets currently, they do feature a good variety of environments. Ocean worlds then will be especially interesting when considering what type of bases may be on the surface of these planets. An in-game communication system is also on the cards, although I-Novae say that this is pretty an extensive update, so it's possible that it may slip into next year. The first stages of the persistent progression system should also be arriving before the end of the year, and this will enable military ranking, as well as the ability to unlock certain content such as weapons, bobbleheads and ship skins. Longer term plans are set to arrive next year in 2020, and whilst these are scheduled to arrive next year, they will also be included before the game exits early access. One of the largest of these is orbital bombardment with nukes. Now anyone who's played Battlescape will know that battles can get pretty impressive, whether they're in space or on planetary surfaces, so adding nukes into the mix is going to be particularly interesting, both from a point of view of balance as well as from the perspective of execution. It naturally runs the risk of being extremely overpowered, but at the same time there's something very reassuring about nuking from orbit. The game's graphics will also continue to improve and be reworked through 2020, along with general AI improvements. And finally, one of the aspects that I'm especially interested in are the solo and sandbox modes, and this will basically allow players to explore the wonderful environments within the game without having to worry about combat. And whilst Battlescape is purely a game focused on ship-based warfare, the beautiful planets naturally lend themselves to exploration. It's unlikely, of course, that the game will ever feature full-on exploration-based gameplay, but it's pretty neat nonetheless that I-Novae recognise the appeal of this and are including a mode to help support it. Missions are also something that I-Novae are planning on adding in the future, however at this point they're not sure to what extent they will be able to support that. What they do want to include are basic escort missions, and things like that, with the potential ability for players to take sides. Maybe, for example, a player hunting down a target while the other player is trying to protect it. So if you want to have a look at the roadmap for yourself, do have a look at the link in the video description. It's pretty clear that I-Novae have quite a lot of plans for Infinity Battlescape, so here's looking towards the future. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.